They are 600 nautical miles away from us. Kaya sinasabi ko, lahat ng interview ko, sinasabi ko, lumayas kayo mga Chinese. Lumayas kayo kasi Pilipinas ang may-ari niyan. But rhetoric is all, we can only do enough rhetoric. We need to help our armed forces.
Crispino, pag napasaba natin itong batas nito, pwede tayo lumaban sa China?
Pwede naman, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I'm a bit late. First of all, pleasant good morning to everyone, all our distinguished guests today, especially our chairman. Thank you for calling this hearing. Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank, of course, your committee for taking up the Philippine Defense Industry Development Act and all the bills that are being tackled here today. I've been strongly advocating for as a key measure in support of our ongoing efforts to build a credible and concrete defense program. Amidst growing national concern over our sovereignty, it is very timely that we now consider the merits of revitalizing our self-reliant defense posture program and build a local defense industry that would supply the needs of our armed forces. While we value our defense cooperation with foreign allies, we cannot afford to rely on them entirely. Over-reliance on our allies leaves us on the back foot, always waiting and always dependent on what they will supply us with. Nakakaawa po na kailangan pa natin halos maglimos mula sa ibang bansa para mabigyan ng armas at bala ang ating mga sundalo. Yan po nangyari nung Marawi. We're very familiar with that, Mr. Chairman. At ayoko pong maulit ang ganyan eksena kung saan umiikot po ang ating presidente sa iba't ibang bansa para humingi ng bala at armas para sa ating mga kababayan na binubuhis ang buhay nila para sa ating demokrasya. Our brave men and women of the armed forces deserve more and they deserve better. We are among the top importers of arms here in the ASEAN, spending at least $338 million in arms imports in 2021, next only to Singapore at $361 million and Myanmar at $394 million. Unlike Singapore, however, we have a great deal of resources at our disposal. And unlike Myanmar, they are not operating under military rule. We are not operating under military rule. So why is our arms importation nearly as costly as theirs? A closer comparison will be Indonesia, which in 2021 allocated 3.9% of its overall government spending towards military expenditure, not far from the 3.8% that we directed towards our military. And yet Indonesia's arms imports came at only $68 million, a far cry from our 338 million. Ibig po sabihin, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, na malaki po ang manufacturing industry ng Indonesia when it comes to their arms and armaments. So maliit lang po ang ini-import nila. The defense industry has been growing exponentially. I'm talking about Indonesia. In fact, the Indonesian government is now expected to join the world's top 50 top defense companies by next year. We need to be able to produce our own needs in our own time. We have the resources and we have the manpower and the skills. And I'm quite hopeful that we also now have the political will to push this through. And in the LEDAC, Mr. Chairman, we discussed this with the President, and he's really very keen on coming up with our own defense industry. With the budget season upon us, we're going to have to once again address the still glaring gaps in the modernization of our armed forces. We are, of course, committed to increasing the budget of the AFP. We also have to look ahead, way ahead, beyond their needs over the next year, the future, and into the future of our overall defense strategy. That is why PDIDA should come in, and it's a vital move towards a truly self-reliant defense program. And to be honest, Mr. President, and to look at different countries, the United States, in my personal experience, when the United States needed a sidearm and the Beretta 92 had won that bid, they required Beretta to set up offices in Atlanta, Georgia, where they built the facilities there to supply their military with the sidearms. They did the same for SIG. When SIG won after the Beretta was terminated, the contract, it was SIG Sauer. SIG Sauer, coming from Europe, had to build their plants within the United States to supply their troops with these pistols. So before I end, Mr. Chairman, I would like to mention also the National Defense Act, which is in the agenda as well. This bill is complementary to PDIDA and to the AFP modernization program. Thus, it is imperative that we pass these bills as well. As a matter of fact, I want to thank the President for discussing the Procurement Act, amendments to the Procurement Act. Because, gentlemen, what necessarily is the cheapest is not the best. We all know that, especially for defense. You may get Mickey Mouse planes. We're going to see them crash day in and day out. So not necessarily that the cheapest is the best. And also, we must give priority to those who build their armaments. Apples to apples yan, Mr. Chairman. When you build a rifle from here in the Philippines, and of course we import a rifle from the United States or Israel or other countries, as long as these Philippine-made rifles pass the stringent tests and requirements, they should be given priority because it is made in the Philippines. And the access is much easier for our troops, and of course it will be supporting our economic agenda of the President. So, once again, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for taking this up, this committee, and you will have our full support in plenary for the passage of this measure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, our Senate President. Yes,
Our DND, who's the most senior?
Senior Yusek
Yusek.
Espino.
Yeah, tama po, Your Honor, Undersecretary, na wala po tayo, right now, the Bataan Armory, yung arsenal, they are limited in the production of ammo and firearms. Parang ang firearms na ninyo, or ang firearms na lang is more refurbishing rather than building new ones. Can you please give us an idea on the arsenal?
Actually, sir, that's one of the priorities of the department, yung to improve and upgrade our arsenal. Right now, the arsenal is producing small ammunitions for small arms. And of course, the Secretary wants that we will also develop ammunitions for our 105 artillery pieces. Yes, sir. Right now, we are not still manufacturing those ammunitions. We are still importing.
Is it safe to say that in our experience in Marawi, naghanap po tayo ng bala ng howitzer tsaka mortar rounds?
Yes, sir.
Even
Agree,
as
sir.
far as Pakistan?
Oh, yes,
To
sir.
be able to get
I
this
agree, sir.
ammunition?
I agree, sir. We had a shortage of ammunitions during the Marawi siege, and that is what we do not want to experience in the near future. He wanted the arsenal get upgraded and be able to produce ammunitions for our artillery pieces and for other equipment.
I know that when my meeting with Chief of Staff General Bronner and together with members of the DND, they're in full support of PDIDA as well, so that we can come up with a credible defensive posture by being able to create and manufacture these firearms and ammunition within country. So, do you agree that we should provide them incentives for these companies to be able to set up shop here, Yusek?
Yes, sir. That's why, sir, during the discussion of modernizations, the Secretary of National Defense not only wanted to have this modern equipment, he wanted technologies to be given to us also, so that we can develop and reproduce the things that we need in the armed forces. It's not good if we just buy this equipment. It will be better if we will produce locally.
And I totally agree with your point of view, Yusek, but unfortunately, Chairman, pag wala po silang contract, kung wala po silang advantage, yung importation is always easier. So walang gusto magtayo ng planta dito unless there is a contract with the Philippine government. Is that correct, Undersecretary?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Because the amount to be able to produce for example, you're going to produce A4s for the AR platform for the armed forces, the new rifles for the armed forces, even for the PNP. It takes billions of pesos, I think, to set up the plant. Even a black powder plant, even a primer plant, it takes billions of pesos. Is that correct, Undersecretary? more or less, no, to build those brand new plants.
Yes, sir.
Billions yan po kasi
Billions, yes, sir.
yung equipment, $20-30 million na. So 1.5
Yes, sir.
to 2 billion ang gastos mo dyan just to build the plant alone if the equipment costs that much. So it is safe to assume that under this law, we can grant contracts so that these companies can build an open shop here in the Philippines.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We fully support that. That's why every time we talk to our foreign defense partners, we ask them what technology they can provide to us, especially on the production of spare parts for our expensive equipment that we are buying. Because sustaining this equipment, we have to have the spare parts, especially equipment like the air assets, the naval assets. These are very expensive equipment, but we need support for supplies of spare parts.
Opo, kasi kung sa Pilipinas pa lang, kung shipbuilding, magaling ang Pilipinas, hindi po
Yes,
tayo
sir.
mapapatalo.
Agree, sir.
So instead of importing, and I salute the AFP for the purchase of the Israeli patrol boats, particularly the Navy, because the Israeli company has decided to assemble the rest of the ships here in the Philippines using Cavite manpower in Cavite. That was the Aldag. I forget the name of that patrol boat. But yes, we'd like to see that happen. But also, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, we discussed with the President during the LEDAC, and that's why he mentioned about the procurement program. But problema sa procurement program, Mr. Chairman, is that when you amend the procurement program, it will affect whole of government, no, the whole government yan. But under this National Defense Act, under the AFP modernization program, we can make certain simple amendments that will already exempt the AFP from this particular procurement act. Kasi kung titignan natin yung procurement act, mabusisi yan eh. Baka abuti, parang ano yan, parang very controversial because of course you'll have people on the other side saying that it's going to open it's actually going to open a can of worms in terms of issues on corruption and all that. But for the AFP, it's different because it's usually government to government naman yan eh. Di ba po? Government to government naman. You cannot go to a supermarket and buy the guns and rifles, airplanes and ships. It's really government to government. Therefore, it's a secure transaction. But, for example, yung Air Force natin po humihingi ng isang squadron ng F-16s. I was told in my trip to Washington last year, a few months ago, that there is a EU ally that's willing to give up their 2 squadrons of F-16s because they're going to buy the new F-35 fighter jets from the United States. These are slightly used. I think they're within 10 years. It's about 10 years old. With all the spare parts, all the training equipment, including yung kanilang simulators, for a fraction of the price of brand new ones. Ang sabi nga daw, for the price of 3 or 4 brand new F-16s, you can get a squadron of these slightly used kasi it's government to government, tsaka we are all allies in terms of freedom and democracy. Willing po sila magbigay. Ang problema, hindi magalaw. Ang sabi nga ng Undersecretary of Defense ng United States, hindi ma-entertain ang ating mga sundalo at Air Force officials is because of the Procurement Act. They have to buy brand new. Hindi naman natin ma-afford yung brand new. Isang brand new F-16 is almost about close to maybe $80 million together with the support equipment. But for the price of 4, you can buy 2 squadrons that's slightly used. So we'd like to make a motion that the committee will review the AFP modernization program in this National Defense Act, that we put a certain provision where it says that instead of using the word brand new, modern equipment. For example, we will be coming up with a committee report. Instead of using the word brand new, you can put modern equipment. And then, of course, instead of saying, kasi in the Procurement Act, it's the cheapest, it's not necessarily the best. So, kailangan dyan talagang has to be state-of-the-art so that hindi tayo babagsak sa cheapest equipment.
Can we just amend the Procurement Act, exempting the Armed Forces of the Philippines under the Procurement Act?
There's two trains of thought, Mr. Chairman. One is to tackle the Procurement Act. The problem is, hindi lang po AFP ang humingi ng exemption, pati LGUs eh. So, medyo madugo. Baka mabinbin at sa debate hindi maipasa. Pero at least kung sa AFP lang, I think everybody's in agreement here. Even the critics will agree that in the AFP, we should give priority to the best equipment, but not necessarily the cheapest equipment. And of course, modern equipment, but not necessarily brand new equipment. So, parang gusto natin gawin, I think wala tayong contentious issue dyan. Kung ikaw po, Mr. Chairman, ang maglalabas po nito sa plenaryo, basta lalo na yun, na hinaharas ang ating AFP at ating Coast Guard, I think we will not have a problem because we need this equipment yesterday. We don't need it today or tomorrow. We needed it yesterday. We need these ships yesterday. We need to buy more ships. We need to buy more frigates, more patrol boats. We need to buy Air Force planes. We need to buy missile systems. Sabi ko nga may nag-offer na mga ano sa ating bansa, yung ginagamit na yun sa Ukraine, anti-tank na there's a name for it. Yung anti-tank missiles nila, ano yung tawag dyan? Javelins, yes, javelins. Sabi ko, hindi natin kailangan ng javelins because for the tanks to come to the Philippines, they must ride boats. So what we need is anti-ship missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, and we need to act fast. Particularly this threat from our very unfriendly neighbor in the north. I think we have to start acting fast. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to end by saying that you have our full support. And this afternoon, I will give another privileged speech on the incident that happened 2 days ago on the West Philippine Sea, where we were once again bullied by this neighbor of ours in the north. And nakita mo kung gaano ka tapang ang ating mga Coast Guard at private vessels. But unfortunately, wala tayong magagawa. Ang lilit ng barko natin. Pag binangga yung barko natin, lubog agad yan. Sa liit ng ating mga barko. We need to arm our Coast Guard with bigger ships as well as our Navy patrol boats, our gray ships. Ships that can stay longer periods of time in open water. Hindi pwede kasi nangyayari na yun. Kung maliit yung barko mo, kailangan bumalik palagi yan. Stock up on logistics, on fuel. So, unlike the Chinese, ang lalaki po ng kanilang Coast Guard vessel, they can stay afloat for months before they get resupplied and restocked. So, we don't want any trouble, but we must be prepared for any eventuality. Hindi naman pwedeng pabayaan natin yung mga Marines natin dun sa Ayungin Shoal na gano'n na lang, na walang makain, walang pagkain, walang equipment, walang supply. And I said this time and time again, no rhyme nor reason nor logic can point out that these areas are in China, which are part of China, which is 80 nautical miles from mainland Philippines through Palawan, and they are 600 nautical miles away from us. Kaya sinasabi ko, lahat ng interview ko, sinasabi ko, lumayas kayo mga Chinese. Lumayas kayo kasi Pilipinas ang may-ari niyan. But rhetoric is all, we can only do enough rhetoric. We need to help our armed forces, Mr. Chairman, as my final point. We need to give our men and women, our brave men and women, the ammunition, the equipment that they need to be able to defend our sovereignty. Wala po tayong inaatake dito. We are just defending our sovereignty. Diba? Yun ang manlulupig sa atin. Diba? Sa pambansang awit natin yan eh. Diba? So we sing that every day. And I hope now we will now have to defend our shores with whatever we have. So my final statements, we support the men and women of the armed forces, the DND, our intelligence agencies. We thank them for their bravery and we salute them for their service to the nation. So hopefully makakabawi po kami, not only in this budget but also in the laws that we will pass in this committee, and the chairman will have our full support. Salamat, maraming salamat, Chairman, maraming salamat sa inyo. Saludo po.
Thank you very much to our Senate President, hardworking Senate President, Migz Zubiri.